Hey gamers. So recently Microsoft announced that Forza Horizon 5 is coming out for the PS5 in spring 2025. That's a lot of fives. But I kind of just want to talk about this because I'm a bit disappointed about this personally. So let's just get right into it, shall we? Now, I should specify in saying that I am not, a Microsoft fanboy or whatever. No, I don't love everything about Microsoft. In fact, I prefer in many ways the PS5. I mean, the controller, the system, the trophies, the subscription service. I prefer PlayStation by a long shot. But I still think Microsoft is pretty neat. So this is not coming from a place of, oh, I love Xbox and I want them to stay exclusive because I want Xbox games on my Xbox. I'm not like that. The reason why I'm a bit disappointed is because of the fact that I feel like this is going to hurt the industry going forward, especially in terms of PlayStation being the dominant force of gaming, because Nintendo really doesn't compete. Although there are rumors that Xbox is going to bring over their games to the Switch 2 as well. But still, the PlayStation will be the primary console for most people, for most games, which is already the case now, but it will be even further the case like in a couple of years probably. But anyway, I should also say that here's the thing. Every time I see people talk about this topic, they say how Microsoft said last year they were going to bring 4 titles over to Switch and PlayStation to test the waters, and if things go well, they might do more in the future. People always talk about how they were kind of lying because that's a sudden shift in ideology, about how there's 4 games and now we're getting Forza, which was one of the big 3 that was been there for Microsoft since the beginning of the first Xbox. That is a big deal. But what people forget to notice is the fact that Microsoft has actually been on this strategy for a little while now. I mean, we saw this with Cuphead, the Ori games, new Super Lucky's Tale, and of course Minecraft. I know Minecraft is a little bit different in that it was published by Mojang or whatever for other consoles first, but when Microsoft bought Mojang, they decided to keep it and make it for new consoles as well. So we've seen this kind of trend where Microsoft has been slowly but surely going to other consoles, like Switch or PlayStation before. So I don't know why people are talking about this like it's a sudden big shift, especially last year where they brought over 4 games, including Hi-Fi Rush, Pentiment, and I don't remember the other 2. Indiana Jones, was that one? I don't know. There was 2 other ones I don't remember exactly, but they did this before last year, so I don't know why people forget about that. But that doesn't make it okay, and maybe people are making more of a bigger deal out of it. I think rightfully so, because this is one of the big 3 for Microsoft. There's Gears of War, and then there's Halo, and there's rumors that Gears and Halo is coming to Switch 2 and PlayStation as well at some point. But Forza's up there with being a Microsoft Xbox exclusive, and to see that coming over to PlayStation is very shocking, more than other games that you could kind of argue and say, oh, Hi-Fi Rush is a smaller game. Minecraft, they bought it from other companies, but Forza's made in-house by Microsoft, so I guess I can see where they're coming from. I just wish people would acknowledge the past. But anyway, the reason why I don't think this is okay is because, look, overall, I think this is good for the consumer, at least initially, because you could get your games out on more consoles. You don't need an Xbox to play things like Forza, for example. But at the same time, exclusives help sell consoles and they help build competition for competitors. If PlayStation sees a game that's selling really well on Xbox, they can't have it and be like, oh, let's just get that over to PlayStation and have that same sales. They have to create their own separate game, and it might be better, it might be worse, but it's competition. And with that, Xbox sees okay, they're trying to compete with us, let's make the game better, or let's do this or that. It just builds competition, which I think is overall better for the consumer in the long run. This strategy for Microsoft, I believe, is better for the short term, for more consoles, but on the long run, I have a bad feeling that this is just going to lead to more of expensive prices than we already have been for games, more anti-consumer practices, specifically from PlayStation, which we've already been seeing a lot of, I still can't get over the fact the PS5 Pro is like $830 with the hecking disk drive and stand included. Like, oh my god, I will never let that down. So, like, I just have a bad feeling about this, And it's not coming from a place of I love Microsoft, I love Xbox, It's coming from a place where I love PlayStation the most. Well, of course, Switch is my number one. But, out of the two major ones, Xbox and PlayStation, I prefer that. But I just think this is bad for the industry in the long run going forward, which is very sad to see, Microsoft do this. In fact, one of my wish list things for 2025 was that Microsoft would backtrack on this and they would not go multi-platform. And this is already being proven wrong in February, technically at the end of January. So that wish list thing is not true at all. So that's kind of funny, but also very sad, all things considered. Like, I understand Microsoft's strategy here for doing this. Again, it gets their games on other consoles, so more players, but that also benefits them with money, because you've been hearing people say this a lot about how Game Pass is not really sustainable, so they got to put their games on other consoles to get like actual sales from like the base game. And also a lot of their games that they're putting over on PlayStation and probably Switch 2 at some point are gonna be like games that have microtransactions, something like Sea of Thieves. That was one of the other games that they said it was coming over to PlayStation. I forgot about that. But yeah, that has microtransactions, stuff like that. So, it gets more people to buy stuff, builds a better, larger player base, and so more potential for people to buy stuff from within the game. So like, it's just more money overall for Microsoft. But again, it does bring into question what's going to happen for the Xbox going forward, like the console itself. Because we've already seen, consoles for Xbox and PlayStation, they cost a lot of money to make, to manufacture, and because of that, they kind of sell consoles at a loss, even though it's really expensive, like the PS5 Pro, that's pretty expensive. I feel like they're barely making a profit, if at all, because of the architecture in that. The Switch and like Nintendo systems are the only ones where Nintendo does not sell at a loss if they sell at a profit, but everyone else, they sell at a loss or like even for the most part. And they make up for that with game sales. And if Microsoft is putting their games on other platforms, they don't really need to make hardware anymore because the other companies could do it. So if they're just spreading their games over to other consoles, Xbox might decide like, what, we don't need to make an Xbox system anymore. We can just sell our games to other places, and there you go. We don't have to make a system, and so we get more money. And like, that's also a bad thing to consider, because this video is mostly about the fact that, anti-consumerism and how this affects the gaming industry going forward. But let's just think about the fact for Xbox players, people that have been on Xbox since the beginning, or even like recently, such as myself, they have a back catalog of games, they have their achievements there, their digital libraries, and even physical libraries, if they have physical games, which, it's kind of hard for Xbox, especially because they have the Series S, which is all digital. Anyway, their libraries, all that stuff. If Microsoft decides to stop making Xbox systems, where does that go? Like, I don't think it's going to carry over to like PlayStation. They probably wouldn't allow it, because what benefit would they get from it? Achievements, the digital libraries, so like that kind of screws over the players that have been on Xbox systems for a while now. The initial fan base for the company, which that's kind of another thing. Like, I feel like all these things are mostly gonna happen in the future. Like, we know Xbox is making one more console at least, probably gonna come out like 2026, which I think is too early, but that's been like the rumor talk. So they have at least one more console in the belt, but what happens after that? I'm really nervous about Xbox doing this, not because like, oh, it's bad to get your games out there, but because of what it could affect the game industry going forward. Lots of people make the comparisons that Xbox is going the way of Sega, which I definitely see, although I don't think they will go the full way of Sega, because Sega is a relatively decent company, like in terms of profits, but they struggled a lot, and they aren't in the financial ability right now to make a console, at least in the level of Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft. Microsoft is a huge company. They can afford to do things like put their games on their consoles and not make Xboxes, and still sell things really well, because like I don't think there's anything financially wrong with them, because they're such a big company, unlike Sega. So I don't think they will go that way, at least in the way people think, but I definitely see where they're coming from, because they might start making consoles, and it would be very sad for how PlayStation will react, because everyone talks about the Switch 2, how it's going to be more powerful than the Switch 1. So we're going to get more multi-platform games across the board by a large degree, but it's still not going to be as powerful as like the PS5 probably, and the PlayStation 6 eventually, even though lots of people don't want to hear it, and I don't want to hear it, because I feel like the generation has barely started. Some people even argue it hasn't started at all, but the PS6 and the next Xbox are probably going to come out relatively soon, 2027, 2028. Some people think even the next Xbox is 2026. So anyway, the Switch 2 will still not be a major competitor to those consoles. So if Xbox does decide to eventually leave the console market and just focus on publishing software or whatever from their companies that they bought, which is another weird thing. Why buy companies if you're just going to, just keep their games on competing platforms? Technically it's more money for them, but at the same time, if they're make them exclusive, I feel like more console sales will go up, and so more money will come out, at least in the long term instead of the short term, but that's a whole other separate topic. The point being, Switch 2 won't compete directly with those consoles, so PlayStation will be the dominant force, and so they can do whatever the heck they want to like drive up prices and all that stuff, which has already been happening kind of sort of, because Xbox has not been doing that great this generation and last generation with the Xbox One. And again, the current Switch does not compete really with the other consoles. It's doing its own thing, doing really well, but it's not directly competing with the likes of PlayStation and Xbox, and PlayStation is winning that battle. So yeah, but maybe I'm off base, maybe this is all good for everyone and nothing will happen with PlayStation, everything will be all good. Xbox will still make hardware, but this is my opinion. Let me know what you think though in the comments, because I'm a little bit concerned, but overall we don't know what's gonna happen for sure. Anything can happen. We just have to wait and see. Anyway guys, that's gonna be it for me. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, play some Xenoblade, and I'll catch you all next time for more. Also, I hope you enjoyed the background footage. This was technically Forza Motorsport. This is my brother playing. We did a live stream where he was playing the game, and I just like cut out the chat or whatever, so it's just the gameplay, and it was the closest thing to Forza Horizon. It's like the sub-series, so close enough. It has cars, Forza in the name, so yeah, hopefully you didn't mind too much that it wasn't Forza Horizon gameplay. Anyway, peace, bye everyone.